Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Mike Friesen. With us for our program, Assemblyman Bob Oaks. Bob Oaks represents the 130th Assembly District in New York State, an Assembly District that includes the counties of Wayne, Cayuga, and Oswego. And we thank you folks throughout the area for joining us. Bob Oaks, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Mike.
We're this close. We're getting very close to having a state budget done here at the state capitol. At least I think we are. We'll find out what Bob Oaks thinks about that in just a minute or so. You were telling me as you came in, though, a couple of nice events that you had in your assembly district. One's kind of been ongoing throughout the entire Lenten season. One of your local fire companies, you were telling me, does these Friday night dinners, and it's like turning into the biggest success story in the region.
Well, they've done it for a number of years, and you know, we have tons of great fire companies that serve our local communities, save us dollars by their service, but those don't get funded without support from the local community, and certainly some tax dollars go to that, but they do fundraisers and community people come out. Fairville Fire Department, right in the heart of Wayne County, is one that is over a number of years is done as their major fundraiser of the year, during Lenten season, Friday fish fries or baked if that's the way you like it. And they do such a great job. And my wife and family and friends and others, people say, let's go and gather. And
Let's go to Fairville.
You got it. And it doesn't work every night, but last week, they sold out again and hit a record 1,800, I think, and 15 fish dinners that they did. And if you think about that in just the time period they do it, it's amazing. And they are, interestingly, Palmer's Fish Market out of Rochester. The Fairville Fire Department is their single biggest customer for the whole year. If you added up all the fish bought from any one site, the Fairville Fire Department buys more fish in 7 weeks than anyone else does.
It sounds like a Gordon Ramsay TV show or something like that,
It
right?
could be, and maybe we ought to.
1,800 plus fish dinners in one night.
You got it. They start working on it 3 days out, doing different things to set it all up, and they just have it down to a science. Great volunteers, great fire department, and it's fun to do. Plus, it's the best fish around.
And you know, you make a good point too, because it's not just the Fairville fish dinners, but you see as you drive by the firehouses, all the signs up for the different events, and
Absolutely.
it's not just a community exercise. It's a way for the community to support the fire companies who, as you noted, provide such an invaluable service.
Absolutely.
All right, really cool. And you said you were at a sportsman's dinner where there's some pretty interesting conversation to be had.
Well, very definitely, and this was at Heritage Baptist Church last Saturday night in Palmyra, and over 400 people gathered for a sportsman's dinner, a venison dinner, and great pies and whatever. So
you've been eating good the past
couple. It is true, and I'm in a weight loss challenge, so I'm not I'm not doing very well. At any rate. It was great to be there. Congressman John Katko, Senator Pam Helming, myself, Sheriff Verts, Supervisor Brian Mengtelo, and others came to be a part of it, as well as the folks, sportsmen who came to it. But you know, among the discussions, this is a very difficult time. You know, and you have people there who love to hunt, love to use their firearms for their enjoyment of the outdoors and skill, et cetera. And at the same time, we have a situation in our society and across this country of concern about individual safety and certainly school safety. And so the discussion about how do we do this without a knee-jerk reaction which violates a lot of the Second Amendment rights and legitimate part of our social fabric of individuals enjoying the outdoors and their life as sportsmen, and at the same time provide security in our schools. And it was really good to have some of those discussions, to talk about it. And if you look at, I think right now, Sheriff Verts is a great advocate for school resource officers and expanding that. In our communities, we're looking for some money in the budget. Congressman Katko announced that the federal government is going to be providing dollars in the last resolution that they just passed for some monies funneling down to the states for those services. Also, Sheriff Wirtz working closely with our local mental health department to try to say, okay, what can we do, one, to serve the jail population? Individuals who come in with substance abuse problems, how are we going to serve them while they're captive in the jail and maybe help them get rid of some of those problems, as well as perhaps deal with some of the underlying mental health issues. And so I think this is a great time that you see the sheriff working together with the local mental health department. You have sportsmen talking about this issue, but also concerned that they don't want a solution that violates their rights. How do we solve this? I think it only works when you have people coming together, and I think we're on that track in Wayne County and hopefully across New York State.
Yeah, boy, it sure would be nice to see that kind of reasoned discussion taking place, maybe let's say in Washington or something, where they have some of these big discussions, but they're very polarized.
Yes.
You got to bring people together.
Absolutely.
And if they don't talk it out, that's nothing productive is going to happen. I mentioned at the top of the program that we're close to getting a budget done at the state capitol. Maybe we're close. I say we're close because the first of the budget bills has already come out for debate and discussion and passage in both houses. But the negotiations are still ongoing as we sit here and tape this program just a few days before April 1st, the start of the state's new fiscal year. It's also April 1st, Easter Sunday. It's also April Fool's Day. People talk about that a lot here at the state capitol, the coincidence of April Fools with the budget needing to be in place. Bob Oaks, why don't we take a look at some of the remarks you said that you made on the passage of what's known here in Albany as the Debt Services Bill. This is usually the first of the budget bills to come out on the floor, and it has to do with the state's payments on the debt that it has, the interest payments. Just like you folks, if you've got a credit card with a balance on it, this is what you have to do each month. You have to make your payments on that. This is what the state's doing here. We'll take a look and a listen, and we'll be back to talk more with Bob Oaks.
Out of the dollars coming in from the taxpayers of New York, being focused on and having to be focused on clearly debt that we've incurred, much of it, in fact, over 90%, 90+% of that never approved by the voters of New York State. So as we go forward, my concern today would be to raise to each one of us what we take action in this next budget as we put that out. Again, today we're approving the payments for debt we've already incurred, not to and hold back and try to do all we can to hold down the debt and the growth of debt in the state as we go forward. Thank you.
As we think about that, isn't it true that the debt, any debt in New York State, is supposed to be approved by the voters? Isn't that like in the state constitution that the state cannot run up a credit card unless the voters, the people of the state, say, oh yeah, we need this, we need that. And kind of like if you're, again, a homeowner or somebody who might be watching this program saying, I need a new car, so I'm going to have to borrow for that. I want to buy a house, or I need a capital improvement on my home. Yeah, all right, this is one of those times when I need to borrow some money. Isn't that true for the state of New York?
It is, and yet, as I just mentioned in those remarks, over 90% of the debt that we have in the state outstanding is more credit card debt than it is the mortgage on the house against the real property or approved by the voters, as you would say. And so that's a major concern as we go forward. And every year we're paying over $5 billion out to service that debt. And we're at an era right now with very low interest rates, so you can serve pretty high debt reasonably low comparatively. If those rates, as they are now, starting to trickle up, it doesn't speak well for the future. And I guess my remarks there were saying the total budget that we're going to be dealing with in the next few days and see those bills, that could incur substantially more debt. And, if debt is growing faster than the rest of the budget, that's a major concern. If we aren't, in fact, many of us would like to see, let's start getting the debt of the state down so that we aren't putting as much of a burden on the future taxpayers and the young people of this state to pay off the debts of us and all of us right now.
I've heard some people compare debt being rung up by government as sort of like a politician's crack, and it's that addictive because it allows you to borrow and spend on things now
Today.
and put off for somebody else the problems of dealing with that, and which is how a lot of people get into problems with their credit card companies, right?
Absolutely. And how does that get changed? It changes by changing the actual actions you're taking. Families have to take hard looks who end up a hard look for those who end up in credit card problems and not being able to pay that. What do? You take really strong actions to try to respond to that. That's a major concern. The debt is one, and as I said, the bill we passed is saying we're going to pay our responsibilities over the current year. Now we're looking at, okay, what decisions are we going to make this year? They're going to impact debt, but also impact the taxpayers of New York State.
And that's what we want to talk about. What's going to impact the taxpayers of the state, the people that are watching this program that you represent. We're hearing about an awful lot of new taxes that are coming out, an awful lot of new spending. This is at a time when I remember back in January, the governor said the sky was falling based on what was going on in Washington with their tax cuts and changes to the federal tax code, and that the state was going to be massively in a deficit situation. But it seems as if the increased spending train continues to ride through Albany.
Well, and when the economists came to speak to us about how is the economy doing overall, nationally and in New York State, we're seeing upticks, but it is a fragile economy. Who knows what the end of the next fiscal year will be like, but spending, there's always a lot of appetite to try to spend in this state. And if you look at our budget, the one that will be approved, we'll probably spend close to $170 billion. If you divide that quickly by the 20 million people of New York, that's around $8,500 for every man, woman, and child in New York State. The process of going through that is difficult because there are many people with different priorities of how they would like to see that money spent. I think as I go into budget each year, it's trying to say, okay, how do we get a future? A better future is to control that appetite some. And we know many of us say we don't have as much of a revenue problem as we have a spending problem in the state. But how do we control the debt and make sure that we do have a future? How do we control the spending responsibly to stay within the resources that we have right now? We have a significant surcharge on higher earners in the state. And those dollars are funding some of the largesse in the state. We need to be concerned about, we don't want too few people paying so much of a part of the big taxes in the state, because if the economy goes down, those revenues are going to be lost as well. So it makes it complicated, difficult, but that's what's going to be talked about over the next few days.
All right, I think we're close to getting this thing all wrapped up here at the Capitol.
You know what, Mike? We aren't going to have an on-time budget. It's either going to be early or late, and amazingly, I'm going to bet today, but I've been wrong, and the reason I don't bet is because I'm usually wrong. I think it's going to be actually a couple days before the deadline. We'll see.
We will see. Bob Oaks, thanks for joining us today. Always interesting insight. We thank you folks, too, for spending your time with us. We'll hope to see you soon for our next Assembly Calendar.